Poddin My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Poddin My Noggin. I'm your host, CK Sims, and this week we're having a timely conversation. I think we're going to, and I'll let you decide at home. And my guest this week is Robert A. Lane. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here, CK.
Great to have you. So, Robert, I do this thing when, obviously we have a medium where I can get connected with great guests. And I kind of do a quick glance when they reach out and I'm like, yep, that sounds like someone I want to talk to. And then that's it. I don't do anything else until just before the show. And I have a reason for that. It's because if I were to research you in advance, I would formulate questions in my head. And that's not how I like to do things. I like to have conversations and go off what's said. But I will tell you, a couple things stood out to me. One in particular, and I really want to bring this up because I think that this speaks to your character. And I want people to understand who Robert A. Lane is. So I'm going to share this part with them, with your permission, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So a part of, and you probably have no idea what I'm about to share.
I'm game, man. Let's do it.
Yes. So on the form that I have all my guests fill out, there is a question that says, as Poddin My Noggin is conversational in nature, are there any areas, topics, or questions that you would be uncomfortable addressing? I ask this because I want to show the show to be a safe space for everyone, yourself included. And I loved your answer. Usually I get no, or one time I did get like a specific thing, but yours said, I can't think of any. I guess if it's hateful or demeaning to anyone, then I won't talk about it. And that resonated with me. And I thought that was a really beautiful way of summarizing who you are as a person and who you want to show up to be in public, right? And I just felt that was something that I wanted the audience to know about Robert A. Lane. So Robert is, well, you're a lot of things, really, if you want to look at it. So you're a writer. You're in a band.
I've done music, yes.
Yes. One of the cool things that stood out for me, actually, right from the cuff, and I have a question. Not a lot. We won't focus too much, but I am curious. So you worked at 20th Century Fox for 14 years. So I love film and things like that. So what was that like? How did you get into that particular line of work? And what did you do there?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a backstory.
Okay.
I am an audio guy. I studied audio in college. My first job was working in radio, so I did the whole production thing and hosted talk shows and music shows and voice commercials and that kind of thing. And then that led to other audio jobs. I worked for Playboy Radio and I'm not sure if they still do that. I mean, this was 20 years ago, at least. It was a long time ago. But then that actually led to working in a post-production facility in Hollywood. And it's funny because I got a random call while I was working there. I was scheduling work for the facility. And somebody from 20th Century Fox called me and said, hi, I'm Jackie from 20th Century Fox Media Services Department. And you came highly recommended. And was curious if you'd like to work for 20th Century Fox and schedule for our audio department. And, of course, I'm like, well, who recommended me? And she goes, I can't tell you. But I did find out. It was actually one of the operation managers who did work at the facility that I was at, and they happened to be friends. But that's how I got into 20th Century Fox. It was really a random call from somebody's recommendation, which I'm very thankful for. So it was exciting to work on a studio lot. But of course, on the other hand, and this is something that I just want people to realize, is that it's still a corporate job. So everything that you experience, whether you work in a corporation or any type of job, you still go through the same rigors of hitting deadlines, bad bosses, time management, you name it. It's still the same. Now, well, let's see, how do I want to say? I guess I can say I feel very fortunate. I feel very fortunate for having the experience of being able to see what it's like to work at a major movie studio, which is something that a lot of people don't get to experience. And yeah, there is that excitement. There is that um, wow factor for being there where television and movies are made. And I do have my experiences of meeting some famous people and seeing things behind the scenes, which was really cool. And this is something where I really appreciate and I'm grateful for having that opportunity to be able to experience something that a lot of people don't get to experience. So I'm very grateful for that.
I like how you called out too, because I think I think everyone sort of super romanticizes Hollywood, right? And they're like,
Right.
oh my gosh, you work in Hollywood. And it is interesting to
Yeah.
think about because it's something that we see the polished version of a lot, the result of what it might look like to work in a Hollywood. However, it's very easy also to forget that you are absolutely correct, that it is still a job and you're going to run into bad bosses and you're going to run into deadlines and uncomfortable situations and burnout and stress and
Yes.
everything that we get in corporate world, everything that we get as consultant. I'm a consultant. So we still, while I don't work for any particular corporation, it's still crazy. So it's good to see the humanity brought up in that particular situation because it is a grind, right? And
Yeah.
I would imagine because of all the dollars that are on the line, there's probably even more of a higher stressed situation than you would find in most corporate offices because you have investors that are
Mm.
investing in projects and things go wrong and who's gonna fix it, right? Sort of. So a lot of maybe emotions and theatrics, I guess, if you
Yeah.
will, to deal with it.
There's definitely a lot of stress involved. You're absolutely right. Timeline, our windows of delivering product, those windows shrink and shrink and shrink. So the timelines are insane. And, it's almost that story of we're still a skeleton crew. We need help. We're told never to say no. We got to take whatever work comes our way, and these are the deadlines we have to hit. And you're doing a job, a full-time job of 3 people. That's part of the pressure side of it, and that does put a lot of mental stress and physical stress.
There's
So yeah,
that toxicity, yes, because that's what it is, really, is
yeah,
the toxicity. When you
yes,
look at the unnatural weight that bears down on a human to
yeah,
do the jobs of 3 people, to be in an environment where saying no is bad or
right,
setting boundaries are bad or you're deemed as difficult, right? Like those particular things. And while not the topic of this particular podcast, could definitely take up a whole hour of, how to say navigate that
yeah,
and
yeah,
that boundaries are actually, in fact, good for business and good for you. But you were there 14 years.
yeah,
Disney bought out Fox,
yes.
and you were the first round of, and you quotated firing. So it was a firing, not a package.
It was firing, but it was with a severance package. So the Disney buying Fox acquisition was a huge, huge deal. And we knew that we're definitely going to be affected. So it took them a couple of years to finally get around to our department. So they finally did. And I was on the first round of firings, or as in the corporate world, they like to say, we're letting you go.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes, I know that feeling, right?
right.
I know that feeling. I've been there.
So you were offered 2 choices. Either Disney kept you and you worked for them, or they let you go. And part of the deal was that they had to offer a decent severance package for the people that they weren't going to keep. Now, honestly, I didn't want to work for Disney, so I looked at that as a blessing in disguise. I did get a decent severance. Now, of course, losing your job that wasn't by choice is a big deal. That's a big transition, and that's where being tenacious and resilient and reinventing yourself and figuring out what are you going to do, what is the next step.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big deal. That was definitely a transition to figure out.
Yeah, even with a package,
Even
right?
with the
Like
yeah,
even with the package, because
yeah,
so it's so interesting too. Because in 2023, late 2023, I was packaged out from my corporate job,
Mhm.
which this particular company I believed was my horizon company. I was going to be there till death do us part. Essentially,
Right.
is how I envisioned it. So it came as a surprise. Wasn't performance related. It was restructuring, and it came with an okay package at first. But I was like, no, no, no. You're going to pay me double that if you want me to go quietly, because they need my signature, right? That's an important thing for people to
Yeah.
remember. When they come with you with a package, they need that signature to release them, so you can negotiate your price. So I went through that in that 2023 part, and it was November 29th, actually, 2023. And I too was what do I do next?
Mm.
Like what is going to happen? And well, one of the things that I decided to do was I'm going to step out from behind fear, because that's where I lived for most of my life, and I'm going to put myself out there in the most unnatural way that I could ever imagine, and start a podcast, right? And here we are, season 2, going pretty good. I'm
Yeah.
happy. So you know what I mean? The best thing that could have ever happened to me was being packaged out from that organization.
Absolutely.
And I think
Absolutely.
that you share that sentiment as well a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a couple of things that I knew right off the bat. Well, first, I didn't want to go back to the corporate world. I
Mm-hmm.
worked in the entertainment business for 30 plus years in various facets, on camera, off camera, radio, corporate, all that. But I didn't want to go back to the corporate world for a couple of reasons, because I just didn't want to go back. I didn't want to do the grind. But a lot of very qualified people in the business were being let go. So there were hundreds of people clamoring for a very finite amount of jobs that were out there. And I just didn't want to have to fight through that and try to, secure another job. The other thing was I really wanted to do something that I felt would be more fulfilling, that had more purpose, and give something back. I loved helping people. They had a gym on the lot, and I would be in boot camp class twice a week, and helping other people and doing that. And I really was excited about that, about helping other people. And I thought, well, what can I do that would be something along those lines? So I decided, and I remember there was that day, right? You have that aha moment. So there was that day where I thought, okay, I have this severance. I can live off of that for a little bit, but I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I know that's a risky decision. It's a tough decision, but it's something that I'm passionate about. I want to do career coaching, life coaching. I want to take my experiences for the past 30 plus years of being in this industry and all the tools and techniques and things that I've learned about how to help people and navigate through those experiences. I want to be able to help people. So that's when I started Robert Lane Coaching as a career coach and life coach, which actually led to the book that I wrote, which is called Lights Action You.
Okay, so we seem to have a bit of a technical issue, but we are back. And where we left off was you were talking about starting Robert Lane Coaching.
Yes.
So you had said that you didn't want to go back to the corporate world, and I totally get that. You wanted to do something that was purposeful and meaningful. And
Yes.
so, taking all of your experience throughout the past 30 years, you decided to put this in to coaching other people. So why I said at the beginning of this conversation that this is a timely conversation is because of the current economical situation that we're facing. And I think we're probably going to see an increase in unemployment rates over the next little while and that sort of thing. So for me, if you can't make it with being employed, perhaps giving a shot at entrepreneurship is a great way to start. Now you took that leap. What in particular does Robert Lane coaching cater to? Like what would you say is like your primary sort of streams of coaching?
So when I started Robert Lane Coaching, it was career coaching and life coaching. And after I wrote my book, Lights Action You, it's funny, people were saying, oh, you should write a memoir. You have all these years of working in the entertainment industry. You must have stories to tell. And I thought about it and I thought, I guess I do. So maybe I can write about that. But I wanted to take it one step further and not only just share some behind the scenes stories, but with each story, apply a tool or technique or a life lesson or something that the reader can get out of it that's just more than just a story. So that's where the career coaching comes into play. So obviously being an audio guy, I had to turn it into an audiobook, which I did. Right? Makes sense.
That feels like a no-brainer to me. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So then I had other authors approaching me saying, hey, I want to turn my book into an audiobook that I want to narrate myself. And there's a definite need for this. And I decided, let me come up with a program that I can create, that I can take authors through the steps of setting up their own recording space and teaching them the fine art of what it takes to do a narration, to be compelling and engaging and all those things to do a great narration, and then get them published on Audible, Amazon, Apple, and any other distribution platform that works best for what they need to do. So I created the Your Book, Your Voice audiobook coaching program, which is mainly what I do as a coach for one-on-one coaching with authors and taking them through the entire process. Now, I haven't given up the career coaching and life coaching aspect, but what I do with that is that I go out and I do speaking engagements. So I'll do keynotes and talk to whether it's a community or a corporation or anywhere that they would like me to speak and share that knowledge. I love doing that because I feel like I can reach more people that way in a bigger group than just only doing coaching. But in regards to audiobooks, the authors, I work with them one-on-one, and they actually prefer to be working one-on-one because a lot of the books I work with are memoirs. So some of them are very personal, some of them are very traumatic, and being able to feel comfortable, especially when you're working with a coach and an audiobook producer, that will be there for them to help them through it and not have them feel uncomfortable or feel like they're being judged or anything like that. I want to make sure that they're 100% comfortable working with me as much as I want to be with them, and making myself available to help them create an awesome book in their own voice.
I can see how that would be daunting for sure. I am not a purveyor of audiobooks, and there's a block for me, and I don't know why. And I think it's just because I think the relationship I have with books is such a sacred relationship. The act of reading is about the only time that I am actually present in my body, which I've talked about before on the podcast. It's therapeutic. It makes me feel present, and as I'm reading, I can feel my reactions throughout my body. So it's almost like a mindful act for me to read a book. And it in addition to that, it pulls me in to a point where the world outside, external, just shuts off. Right? So it's this absolute escape for me. And so I've had the opportunity to listen to audiobooks. There was one that I don't remember the name of it because I literally was driving in a car and I was like, you know what, I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. And I put it on. I think it was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Hoot. And I put it on and couldn't handle it in that moment because I'm like, oh, there's somebody talking to me, and like because they're talking to me, I feel like I need to be paying attention to them. And it was just this weird thing. So I do want to try again in a different space and in a different mindset to do that, because I understand that there's a whole other, other conduit that the artist or the author can reach someone, right? So I do understand the intrinsic value
Yeah.
of being able to hear someone speak their own words
Hmm.
with their own tone and voice, right? So definitely want to be there. And then when you said about being in a safe space, like I think, I don't know if you said exactly safe space, but like that's how my brain received it, was safe
Yeah.
space. So if you're doing something that you are not used to doing, having a coach help you and guide you
Yeah.
and give feedback, and it being safe and judgment free sounds wonderful, right? It does to me. It sounds wonderful. If I think to myself, if I were to try and narrate, I don't like the sound of my voice.
Aha. I'm glad you said that.
Oh, so we might have some, we might be able to dig deeper into this because I
Yes,
don't. But yeah, so I don't like the sound of my voice. So why are you glad that I said that?
because that is probably the number one issue that I hear from every author that I work with. Yeah, I hate my voice. I don't like how I sound. I don't have what it takes. Let me just get a narrator. They'll do a better job. And I'm telling them, no, your voice is great because what you sound like, this wonderful sound that comes out of your body, CK, this wonderful sound that comes out of your body is your signature. That is who you are. We talk about author brand. And basically, I look at it this way: your author brand is everything that encompasses who you are, the way you were brought up, your personality, your sense of humor, your belief systems, your habits, all of those things. And that includes your voice. That's what makes you you. And that's what makes you stand out in a crowd. So let's say I'm working with a weight loss coach. Well, there's a lot of weight loss coaches out there. Maybe a lot of them have audiobooks, but what makes this weight loss coach sound great is because they narrated it in their own voice and they're telling it the way they want it to be heard. You can get another narrator, and there's great narrators out there, but it's still their interpretation, not the author's. And especially if it's a memoir. I worked on a book with somebody who shared her cancer journey, or someone who was pulled into a religious cult and all the abuse that happened to them. That's something that only they were able to experience, and they will express it in a way that nobody else can because they lived it. And that's their legacy, is leaving a legacy in their own voice for generations to come, to hear that person share their story in their own voice. And that's what makes them stand out. So love your voice, embrace your voice. That's part of who you are.
Well, I'll try. I, I don't know if I'm at the love stage yet. I've told a story, I think last season, when I was talking about the inaugural episode, if you will, like that first one.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it was absolutely painful for me to go back and edit. Because when I'm talking to you now, I do not hear it. I don't hear, like, I know that it's there, but I don't hear it. So I'm not as in tune to what it sounds like. But then when I sit back at a computer and I watch it back, and I remember having this visceral reaction the first time and just being like, oh my God, I sound so gay. And like, and literally just like, I'm like, do I always sound this gay? And I remember asking my friends, and they were like, yes. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, I guess I didn't think I sounded that gay. So it was interesting, but over time editing, maybe it was healing, maybe it was desensitization. Who knows? We'll just leave it up to the universe to decide. But the cringiness of it and the visceral reaction of hearing it diminished. And
Mm-hmm.
so now I can hear myself and not go like that, right? And yeah, it's bizarre. But I agree with what you're saying, because if somebody's writing a memoir, and it's definitely something to do with their life story,
Hmm.
who better to voice that than the actual author? Because there are going to be emphasis placed in certain places naturally
Yes,
that a narrator will never get,
that's right. 100%.
right? And
Yeah.
there could be a part of that book where they're telling a story where you would hear a quiver in the person's voice as they're
Yes.
repeating it that
Yeah.
wouldn't exist for a narrator. So there's absolutely value in the memoir definitely being spoken by the author. So I'll keep that in mind if I ever write a memoir. So you started out with career and life coaching. You still kind of do this, but more in a um, public speaking.
Yeah, keynotes and workshops, that kind of thing that I do for organizations and companies, which is it's fun. It keeps you on your toes when you're
Yes,
out
I would imagine.
there.
And so, does speaking in front of people like large groups cause you any form of nervousness?
I let's be honest, of course it does.
Okay,
It does.
perfect.
But you know what? It's not negative. It's not distress, right? We talk about distress is bad stress, eustress is good stress. So it's that excitement stress, and I I don't mind being on a stage. I was a musician, or I still am, and I've performed on stages and done all that, and big crowds don't really bother me. I actually like playing live and performing live. So I think that experience has helped in regards to speaking. When I get really nervous? In small groups. That's when
Um,
I really get nervous.
and so I'm the complete opposite. Like in a small group, I'm in my domain, I find,
Ah,
right? But if
yeah.
you put me in front of a group of people like what you do, like, and I'm going to come back to this too, and I'm hoping my goldfish mind will remember what I want to ask you. So, like, but like speaking in front of people, I was at a workshop just last week, like a corporate train the trainer workshop,
Mm.
and I wasn't necessarily a presenter, but I was with the presenters, and there were several times that I would have to speak up and out in front of people. And one of the themes came up about being vulnerable. And so, like, I chose to be vulnerable as well and say, just so you know, I'm like, when I'm here and I'm doing this, it's the most vomit inducing thing I ever have to do in my life. And I used a point earlier in the day when I addressed someone's question um, in the large group out loud, and I said, I'm like, when I was delivering that response, I don't know if anyone noticed that my skin color changed, right? Or you wouldn't have noticed that sweat started to trickle down my back,
Ah,
or that a tremor came into my hands. And they're like, one person put their hand up. I was like, I noticed your skin color. I'm like, well, it's hard not to because I become lobster red. But I'm like, the other components, and people are surprised to hear that about you. So, what my question is for you, you said, yes, of course you get nervous, but it's the good nervous. For people listening at home, how do you distinguish between the two?
right. So, like, good stress or positive stress, if you want to say, can be on your wedding day or riding a roller coaster or something that's exciting. uh, Distress, bad stress is anxiety, is worry, is things that can physically impede you from being able to do things that you want to do. So it's a different feeling. The feeling of excitement is good. It's fun, it's exciting, but to be scared, if you're running for your life, well, that's pretty distressful. you know.
So, the reason I ask this is because, I have not been able to master that flip. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
Where you can lean into the excitement of the nerves and drop away the fear of the nerves. There's obviously techniques for this, but there are so many people out there like myself who will catastrophize a situation from
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, especially if it's a public speaking engagement. And the true story is, I was supposed to present until the week before. Something threw me off. A workload change threw me off. And I just went to the leader and said, I can't handle this and this at the same time. So I need to step back from presenting so I can focus on this, right? Because I think had the other workload issue not come into play, I might have been able to work myself through it and present at this workshop. Sorry. Do you have any tips for people being a life coach and a career coach? Say that they are someone who normally struggles with anxiety and wants to public speak, or has to, maybe for their job, it's a requirement to get up in front of people and deliver. Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, and there's things that I even have authors do. The first thing that I have the authors do, my first lesson is a mindset lesson. It's about
Okay.
getting focused, being grounded, being in the present moment. You can't worry about the past or the future. None of that matters. Be in your zone. And the other thing is, and I know this happens a lot with public speaking, or like you say, at a job. What if you have to present a project to a boardroom? That can be pretty, pretty intense and,
Yes.
and nerve wracking. But don't put yourself through oh, what if this and what if that? You're worrying about things that have not come to pass. 80, 90% of the time, what you're worried about never does happen. Oh,
It's true.
they're gonna hate my voice. They're not gonna like my presentation. They're gonna not like what I have to say. And sometimes, even when I'm doing a keynote, I'm talking about like one of my popular keynotes that I seem to get booked for is called "Following Your Moral Compass: Setting Your Intentions True North." And I share a lot of personal stories and examples of how it affected me, and share what I learned from that. But sometimes you think, oh, are they really going to like this story? Do they even care about the experiences?
So we had another technical issue, but we have tenacity. And that leads me to my next question. So you stated that building a business from nothing is challenging, and there were days I just wanted to quit, but I didn't. Resilience, tenacity, and belief on yourself were the driving forces to push me to carry on.
Yes.
So timely again, right? So like I'll be vulnerable, and I don't think my corporate people are going to be watching this podcast. So, like, I'm in this situation right now where I'm like, I want to quit because it is an impossible situation. And it's been an impossible situation for maybe 3-4 months. And I'm thinking to myself, like, every day, I'm like, is this worth it for me? So you're saying that you wanted to quit because, well, why? Why did you want to quit?
Well, as an entrepreneur, it's a tough business. Obviously, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And when there's ups, they're really up. And then when they're down, you're really down. I mean, that the swings are pretty intense. And there are definitely days where you feel like you're just banging your head against the wall, that you're not making any progress. You're doing all this work and you're not seeing any results from it. And then you get to a point where it's like, well, why am I doing this? Why am I killing myself trying to do something? But then I would stop myself from thinking that and then ask myself this question: did you do everything humanly possible to make this work? Have you tried every aspect of making this business work? And if the answer is no, then you keep going and you keep doing it. And it's true. It's like, well, did I try this? Have I done this? Have I done this? Well, I tried these, and well, this didn't work, but I learned something from it. And then I tried this method, and that worked. And then I found this, which improved on the other method. You just keep going and you keep trying, and that's where you grow as a person. You grow with your business, And again, always remembering that the journey of life is always a life lesson. There's always something to learn. When great things happen, love it and embrace that moment. Understand why there was success, and then just like understand why there was failure. It works both ways.
I love that, and I think that's sage advice,
Yeah,
right? Like I like that question. Have I done everything humanly possible to try and make this work? And if
yeah.
their answer is no, just keep going,
Just keep on
right?
going. Yeah,
Don't keep doing the
resilience
same
and
thing,
tenacity. Yeah,
because the same thing, repeating the same thing and getting the same result is what the definition of insanity, I think. But
right.
yes, but
Right.
tenacity, yes. Before the technical issue, and I just remember, see, Goldfish Brain. We were talking about anxiety and combating that, and the distinguishing between good stress, bad stress, that sort of thing.
Right.
And you said that during your speaking engagement, sometimes when you do it, you get in your brain and you're like, do they even care about my personal stories? And you have responses because of you also have a goldfish brain you've identified. You start to talk faster to try and not forget what it is that
Right.
you're to say. So, like, for people at home, if they're in this position where they say their job is mandating them to get up and do public speaking, or it's something that they have a story but they're terrified of getting up
Hmm.
and doing, what's a solid piece of advice that you could give them?
First thing, and it may seem obvious, but it's something that a lot of people don't do, or they don't really put their whole heart into it, and that's practice. Practice.
Mm.
Know your stuff. Know that speech. Know that project that you're going to present to your bosses. Know that keynote that you're going to say to a corporation. Practice it and get used to it so that it is like second nature. Because when you are because that's what builds confidence. When you are confident on what you're going to talk about, then those crazy questions and doubting yourself and second guessing yourself, they don't seem to creep up in your brain as much as it did before when you didn't feel as prepared. So being prepared is a great thing. Even with authors doing audiobooks, you wrote the book. Of course, it's your words. Let's say you're going to record chapter 3. Well, go back and read it. Refamiliarize yourself with that. Get into the emotion and the feeling that you felt when you wrote that, because that's what's going to come out in your delivery. That's what's going to come out in your narration. Just like doing speaking engagements, tap into the emotional side of it, because it's the intangibles. That's the secret sauce. The intangibles, the things that you don't physically touch, but you emotionally feel. Those are the things that make a great speech. And that's what makes a great audiobook too. When you have somebody that sounds very reedy and monotone, it gets a little boring, right? But when you have
Absolutely.
somebody who's telling a story and they're just as passionate about it, that energy and personality comes through. And what that really boils down to is them being their true authentic self. So be your true authentic self, whether it's an audiobook, whether it's a speaking engagement, even if it's a presentation, just be yourself, do your thing. Because again, that's what makes you you. That's what makes you unique. And that's what allows you to stand out. And I tell authors this all the time. It's like, why get another narrator? Or why try to sound like somebody else? Be yourself, because that allows you to stand out in the crowd. No one can
So
replicate you.
I'm smiling so much, and I have to share why I'm smiling, but also being mindful of compounding time. And we might get another technical issue, but during the workshop last week, you would have been such a great keynote speaker, because everything you just said was the sort of arc of train the trainer, right? People
Mm,
dealing with voice modulation to not be boring, and the purposes of the different 4 stages that we use in voice modulation and training. Your presence. The message was always be authentically you. Don't fake it. Don't try to be somebody else. Just be you, and practice.
yeah,
Right? Know your subject matter inside and out. Like,
yeah,
if you know your subject matter inside and out, what we're going to teach you this week is really how to command a room and hold presence in that room.
Yeah.
And it was so in line with everything that you just said. So it was interesting because I'm just like sitting here having this smiling moment because it's very full circle. You know, we went to the workshop to deliver it, but now I'm having this conversation where you are having the same notes for people to listen, to help them. So, what is your messaging to others, Mr. Lane?
My messaging to others, in what respect? Where do you want me to?
What if you could tell people anything right now in this world, in this climate, what would that be?
Honestly, it probably would be your true authentic self, love who you are, embrace the person that you are, because there's no one else like you. There really isn't. So love that and embrace who you are. You are the CEO of you. It's one of my catchphrases I throw out there all the time. You are the CEO of you. So the decisions that you make, the buck stops right here with you. So whatever decisions you make, whether they're business decisions, your entrepreneurial decisions, your personal decisions, make sure it's something that's good and positive that moves your life forward. Make those decisions and then hold yourself accountable. That's the other thing. It's one
I
thing
like
to say it, but it's
Yeah.
another thing to hold yourself accountable. And one good test of that is, let's say you set your alarm to get up at 6 in the morning. Well, you have just made an agreement with yourself the night before that you set your alarm and you're going to wake up at 6 in the morning. Don't break that agreement with yourself. When the alarm rings, don't hit snooze. Get up, start your day.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself, hold yourself accountable. Even something just small like that, because what happens is that the subconscious is not going to believe you. Oh, you're just going to hit the snooze button. Why? Well, I'm not even going to believe you. Why should I believe you? No, show your subconscious. This is a habit. I'm holding myself accountable and I'm going to do it. So there you go.
I love this because I don't think people, and I don't even know if you know how layered the words of wisdom that you're giving us in this podcast are. Like the things that you're touching on and the things that you're saying are so applicable to so many different things. They have many applications, right? We're just talking about the subconscious thought patterns that we tell ourselves and the mistrust we create in our own person because we don't follow through or we don't hold ourselves accountable. Like that's such a layered and complex organism of its own.
Yeah.
But something that is a simple trick to set your alarm clock for 6 o'clock and get up and show yourself that you will show up for yourself and be accountable always.
Yeah.
Life changes post that because you're rewiring who you are.
Exactly.
But that's another podcast. So you can be found. You have a band called Lane's Lair.
Lane's Lair, yes.
Tell us about that.
I still do that. This is a poster behind me. It's a Lane's Lair poster. I don't know if people can see that or not. But yeah, so I've been in bands for years. I started playing music when I was 13 years old. So it's been a long journey. And I've been in various bands. So this latest rendition, Lane's Lair, is, I decided I'm going to do that as a solo artist. So that's my persona, Lane's Lair. So I am Lane's Lair when it comes to the music thing.
Oh, okay. I love this.
Yeah.
And they can find your music on streaming or in record stores.
Yeah, so actually, my first album, for those who are watching the video, it's called Resurrection of Black, and this came out in 2015. So my style of music is, it's, you know, I'm a rock guy. What can I say? But it's like Pink Floyd meets Rush kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm definitely going to Google afterwards.
Yeah, if you Google Lane's Lair, it'll come up. And then I released a second album. This one's called 1111. And
I'm loving the covers here.
Well, thank you. That album, I went on a little different journey. It's more of a singer-songwriter type. It's with a band, but the style changed. So the first album did great. I was really surprised, honestly, that it did really well in Europe, of all places. And it was like embraced by the prog rock world, of all things. And I did not consider that like a prog rock album or anything, but that's okay. I'll take it. So I was very, very pleased with that. The second album, like I said, it's more songwriter based. So I think that was such a shift for some people that they're like, oh, what is this? But you know what? That's okay, because again, we're just being ourselves. We're being our true, authentic self, and that just was where I was at that time. So I am working on a third album, which is called
Okay.
it's called ER, which stands for Emotional Release, and it's getting back to the Resurrection of Black, the first album style, but on steroids. So it's going to be a
Oh,
lot more intense.
okay, okay. And we have so there you have the Light Action You.
Yes,
You can get this book on Amazon. It's
yes.
also in audiobook. And then you have a YouTube channel and a website just for everybody at home. We're going to link this in the description, but it's Robert Lane Coaching. So Robert, as you would spell, drive down the lane
Yep,
and then coaching.com.
that's right.
Just for anybody at home wanting to go check that out. And then if you have a book and you want to meet up with Robert or contract Robert to be a coach with you to help you get that produced and put into book form. I said audiobook form. Then you can also go to that website and reach out to him there. So we know that the album is next and it's on steroids. Is there anything else next in Robert A. Lane's life
Well,
journey?
I have to say, ER is my passion project right now. I'm excited about it. There will be 11 songs on the album. They're all titled. I know what each song is going to be about. Two of them are completed. Chipping away. Album artwork is already done, so it's getting there. Um, I'm hoping to get it done and out by the end of this year, but we'll see. One of the things and this is one of the lessons that I learned as a musician, is you can't rush a project. And I think that was the other thing with the second album, is that I pressured myself to get it out there, and I set myself some strict deadlines. And I feel that may have been a factor of why even I feel like it's not as I don't want to say not as good, because I don't want to say my album stuff is not good, but
No, but I think if you rush through things, you hamper your artistic expression.
yeah,
And
that's how
with
it
the
felt, and that's how
disconnect,
it felt.
right?
Yeah,
So, and that's a valuable life lesson that can be applied to everybody everywhere. Don't
yeah,
rush progress, right?
yeah.
Like you need to be intentional, if you will, about everything you do, and that's just a dig at certain people I work
Right.
with, just as you know.
Of course. And and it's great to have deadlines. You have to do that, because
Yeah,
again, that's part of being accountable. I am the CEO of me, so I'm the boss. I have to make sure that I keep myself on track. But again, and even with anything that you do, don't make that 30 things to do list every day. Chop that down to maybe the top 3 or 5 things that you need to do for that day, and get them done, because then you'll make progress. When you see that,
absolutely.
right, you see that giant list and you're like, oh man, how am I going to get this done? And then
Everyone looks at the hill as opposed to just the step in front of them,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Robert, you have been a terrific guest, and I'm just being mindful of time because this is about where we have some technical issues happen.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming on. Everyone out there, visit robertlanecoaching.com to check out all about Robert. If you are an author and want an audiobook, get in touch with Robert to hook you up with some serious coaching. And then wait for his release, perhaps next end of this year, for ER from something Lane's
Links
Lair.
later.
Sorry, just goldfish brain. So lots of things going on. Thank you so much for being here today. I do appreciate it. Everyone at home, I want to wish you a happy weekend and go out there and live your wildest dreams. Until next time.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksims.com or visit cksims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.